Rome collapsed more than 1,500 years ago, and you're still living in it. The calendar on your phone? Roman. Half the words coming out of your mouth? Roman. The government of your country? Copied from Rome's homework. In this video, you'll find out how a wolf raising two abandoned babies started the greatest empire in history. You'll meet the richest man in the world, who died with a throat full of molten gold. And you'll watch the most powerful throne on earth get sold at an auction, like a used chariot. This is the entire story of Rome. Every empire needs an origin story, and Rome's is a good one. Twin baby brothers, Romulus and Remus, sons of Mars, the god of war, were thrown into the Tiber River to die. But instead of drowning, they were rescued and raised by a wolf. A wolf? Raised human babies? Yes. And nobody checked on this? It was a different time. When the brothers grew up, they decided to build a city on the Tiber. But there was a problem. The city could only have one name. We'll call it Rome, after me, Romulus. No, we'll call it Reme, after me, Remus. Reme? That's a terrible name. It's literally the same name as yours. So the brothers fought, Remus died, and Romulus named the city Rome. Population: 1 guy, 0 guilt. Now, did any of that actually happen? No. Roman historians made it all up, because we started as a small trading village around 750 BC. Doesn't sell. But don't worry. The true story is about to get much crazier than the fake one. Rome's first era was the kingdom, and Rome immediately did something unusual. The king wasn't chosen by bloodline. A council of old rich men called the Senate picked him. So it's a democracy. No, it's rich guys choosing a king. That doesn't sound better. It's Rome. Give it time. 7 kings ruled Rome. The first 6 were fine. The 7th, Tarquin the Proud, was a tyrant, and his son committed a horrible crime against a noblewoman named Lucretia. The news spread through Rome like fire. The people rose up, and in 509 BC they threw Tarquin out and made a new rule. Rome will never have a king again. Ever. They took that rule so seriously that wanting to be king would eventually become the #1 cause of death among ambitious Romans. Remember that. It's going to matter later. So if there's no king, who's in charge? Rome invented something new: the Republic. 2 elected leaders called consuls ran the state, but only for 1 year, so they couldn't get too comfortable. Below them was the Senate, full of rich nobles called patricians. And below the Senate were the plebeians, the ordinary working people. So the rich and the poor share the power? In theory, yes. And in practice? In practice, the rich have all the money, all the land, and all the Senate seats. So what do the poor have? The right to complain about it. That tension between the rich and everyone else never went away. Write that down too, because it's going to blow up the whole system. But first, Rome went on an absolutely incredible run. Rome conquered its neighbors, then its neighbors' neighbors, and by 338 BC, it controlled most of the Italian peninsula. There was one bad moment in 390 BC when the Gauls came down from the north and burned half of Rome to the ground. Should we surrender? No. We rebuild, and then we conquer everybody so this never happens again. And that's exactly what they did. Which brings us to Rome's greatest rival, Carthage. Carthage was a superpower on the North African coast, right here, and it controlled the Western Mediterranean with the best navy in the world. Rome wanted the Mediterranean. Carthage was in the Mediterranean. So Rome and Carthage fought 3 wars over 100 years, called the Punic Wars, and the second one gave the world one of the greatest military minds in history, Hannibal. Everyone knew you couldn't invade Italy by land because the Alps were in the way. Mountains so high and so cold that no army could cross them. So Hannibal crossed them, with war elephants. Sir, the Romans will never expect an attack from the north. Because of the giant frozen mountains? Exactly. Perfect. Load up the elephants. The elephants, sir? Did I stutter? Hannibal spent 15 years rampaging around Italy, destroying every army Rome sent at him. Roman parents literally scared their children by saying, "Hannibal is at the gates." But Hannibal could never capture Rome itself. and eventually Rome attacked Carthage directly and forced him to come home and lose. Then, in the Third Punic War, Rome decided it was done playing. In 146 BC, Roman soldiers looted Carthage, burned every building to ash, and sold the survivors into slavery. Rome didn't just defeat Carthage, Rome deleted it. That seems excessive. Rome doesn't do moderation. With the West secured, Rome turned east and conquered Greece, the land of Alexander the Great. But then something funny happened. The conquered started conquering the conquerors. Romans fell in love with Greek philosophy, Greek art, Greek architecture, Greek everything. We defeated the Greeks. Great. Also, I signed you up for Greek philosophy class, hired a Greek tutor for the kids, and we're rebuilding the house with Greek columns. Did we defeat the Greeks? By 100 BC, Rome was the superpower of the known world, which means it's time for everything to fall apart. Remember that tension between the rich and the poor? It was back, and it was ugly. Politicians who tried to help the poor kept getting assassinated. Civil wars broke out. And when a republic becomes weak and chaotic, one type of man always shows up to fix it. History calls him a strong man. Rome called him Julius Caesar.
Caesar teamed up with two other powerful men, Pompey, Rome's greatest general, and Crassus, Rome's richest man. Together they were called the First Triumvirate, which is Latin for three guys who don't trust each other. We'll share power as equals. Agreed. Agreed. Equal partners, forever. Everyone quietly reaching for a dagger. The Senate sent Caesar north to conquer Gaul, which is modern France, Belgium, and Switzerland. The Gauls had no intention of surrendering, so what followed was 8 years of the most brutal warfare Rome had ever seen. It ended at the siege of Alesia in 52 BC, where Caesar surrounded the city so completely that nothing got in or out until the Gauls starved and broke. Ancient writers claim Caesar fought 3 million Gauls, killed 1 million, and enslaved 1 million more. Those numbers are probably exaggerated. The devastation was not. Meanwhile, Crassus was jealous. Caesar was getting all the military glory, and Crassus wanted some. So the richest man in Rome marched an army east to invade Parthia. The Parthians destroyed his army, killed him, and according to legend, poured molten gold down his throat, so the greedy man could finally have his fill. Is that story true? Probably not. Then why tell it? Because the Parthians wanted everyone to hear it. Propaganda isn't new, my friend.
With Crassus gone, only Caesar and Pompey were left, and Rome wasn't big enough for both. The Senate sided with Pompey and sent Caesar a message. Disband your army and come home alone. Caesar came home. He forgot the alone part, and also the disband your army part. In 49 BC, he crossed the Rubicon River with his legions, which was the legal line no general was allowed to cross with an army. Crossing it meant civil war. Sir, if we cross this river, there's no going back. The die is cast. Let's go. Sir, that's a gambling metaphor. Gambling is how we got into debt in the first place. Let's go. Caesar crushed Pompey at the Battle of Pharsalus. Pompey fled to Egypt, where the Egyptian king had him murdered as a welcome gift for Caesar. Caesar now stood alone, and he made himself dictator for life. And here's the uncomfortable part, he was good at it. He built roads, reformed the laws, gave real relief to the poor, and fixed the calendar into basically the one you're using right now. The people loved him, but a group of senators looked at Caesar and saw only one thing: a king. And what does Rome do to kings? On March 15, 44 BC, the Ides of March, Caesar walked into a Senate meeting. The senators crowded around him, pretending to present a petition. Then the daggers came out. 23 stab wounds, and in the chaos, Caesar saw the face of Brutus, a man he had loved like a son, holding a knife. His last words as history records them: "Et tu, Brute? You too, Brutus? We did it. We killed the tyrant. We saved the republic." The senators thought killing Caesar would restore the republic. Instead, they killed the republic along with him. The people of Rome were furious, and into the chaos stepped Caesar's 18-year-old adopted son, Octavian. Never heard of him? You will. Octavian teamed up with Caesar's loyal general, Mark Antony, hunted down the assassins, and destroyed their armies.
Then Octavian and Antony split the Roman world between them. Octavian took the west, Antony took the east. And in the east, Antony fell madly in love with the queen of Egypt, Cleopatra. Octavian saw his chance and launched history's most successful smear campaign. Citizens of Rome, Antony has abandoned Roman values. He's controlled by a foreign queen. He wants to move the capital to Egypt. Is any of that true? Doesn't matter. Say it louder. Rome declared war. At the Battle of Actium in 31 BC, Octavian's fleet destroyed Antony and Cleopatra's navy. Cornered in Egypt, they both took their own lives, and Octavian stood alone as master of the Roman world. Now, Octavian was smart. He knew Romans killed anyone who called himself king. So he didn't call himself king. He called himself Augustus, the revered one, and said he was just the first citizen of a restored republic. So you're not a king? Nope. Just a regular citizen. A regular citizen who controls the army, the treasury, and the senate? Exactly. That's a king. SHHHHH. The republic was dead. The Roman Empire had begun. And honestly, it began great. Augustus ruled for 41 years and ended a century of civil war. He reformed the laws, rebuilt the city, and gave the empire the one thing it was starving for: stability. This launched the Pax Romana, 200 years of Roman peace. When Augustus died in 14 AD, Rome declared him a god, and the month of August still carries his name. But there was one problem Augustus never solved. How do you choose the next emperor? And Rome's answer was, apparently, let's just see what happens. What happened was a family of maniacs. His stepson Tiberius ruled for 22 years, got bored, and moved to an island, running the empire by mail. Then came Caligula, who ruled for 4 years of pure paranoid madness. He executed innocent people for fun, declared himself a living god, and allegedly planned to make his horse a senator. A horse? In the Senate? Honestly, it might have raised the average. Caligula's own bodyguards eventually murdered him in a hallway. Next came his uncle Claudius, who was actually a decent administrator, until his wife allegedly served him a plate of poisoned mushrooms so her teenage son could take the throne. That son was Nero, emperor at 16, and one of the worst rulers in human history. He had his own mother killed. He emptied the treasury. He executed anyone who criticized him. And in 64 AD, a great fire destroyed half of Rome. You've probably heard that Nero fiddled while Rome burned. That's fake. The fiddle wouldn't be invented for another 1,000 years. But the fire was real. Nero blamed the Christians for it, and Rome's patience finally ran out. The armies revolted, Nero fled and took his own life, and the dynasty of Augustus ended forever.
So who's the next emperor? Great question. In 69 AD, 4 different men answered, "Me," in the same year. First, Galba took the throne and immediately cut the army's pay, which is the fastest way to stop being emperor. His own Praetorian Guard, the bodyguards sworn to protect him, killed him in the street. Wait, the emperor's bodyguards keep killing the emperor. Yes. Isn't their whole job the opposite of that? Welcome to Rome. Then came Otho, who was actually decent, but General Vitellius crushed his army, so Otho took his own life after 3 months. Then Vitellius took Rome, and his soldiers looted the city they were supposed to rule. Finally, a general named Vespasian marched in, and the people of Rome dragged Vitellius out of hiding and threw him in the river. 4 emperors, 1 year, 0 stability. But Vespasian? Vespasian was the real deal. Disciplined, intelligent, and famously cheap. He even taxed the public urinals, and when his son complained that toilet money was disgusting, Vespasian held a coin under his nose and said, "Money doesn't stink." He rebuilt Rome's finances, and with the profits he started building a little side project you may have heard of, the Colosseum. 50,000 seats, still standing, still one of the most visited places on Earth. Not bad for toilet money. After Vespasian came Rome's Golden Age, the era of the 5 good emperors, from 96 to 180 AD. Under Trajan, the empire reached its maximum size. Look at this map. From Britain to Iraq, from the Sahara to Scotland, all of it, Rome.
The city itself hid 1 million people, connected to everything by 80,000 kilometers of roads. Ever heard the phrase, "all roads lead to Rome"? That wasn't poetry, that was infrastructure. Trajan's successor Hadrian said, "Okay, that's enough conquering," and built a giant wall across Britain to mark where the empire stopped. And the last of the 5, Marcus Aurelius, spent his whole reign fighting wars on the frontier, and in his tent at night, the most powerful man on earth wrote a private journal about staying humble. That journal, Meditations, is still a bestseller 2,000 years later. He never meant for you to read it. Sorry, Marcus. Then Marcus Aurelius made one catastrophic mistake. He gave the empire to his son. Commodus cared about exactly one thing: fighting in the Colosseum as a gladiator, in matches that were definitely rigged. The emperor wins again. What are the odds? The odds are whatever he says they are. His own inner circle finally had him strangled in his bath by a wrestler named Narcissus. And with that, Rome fell into the crisis of the 3rd century. Over the next 100 years, more than 25 emperors came and went, and almost every single one was assassinated. Being Roman emperor was now statistically one of the most dangerous jobs on the planet. At the lowest point, the Praetorian Guard killed the emperor and then auctioned the throne to the highest bidder. The Roman Empire. Do I hear 5,000 sesterces per soldier? 6,000. 6,250. Sold to the rich guy who will be dead within 3 months. And he was. Meanwhile, the empire was rotting. Plagues, invasions, inflation, and generals fighting each other instead of the enemy. Rome, the civilization that conquered the world,
was eating itself alive. It needed something drastic. In 285 AD, Emperor Diocletian looked at the map and said the unthinkable. This empire is too big for one man. So he split it in 2, a Western Empire and an Eastern Empire, each with its own emperor and a deputy. Then in 305 AD, Diocletian did something almost no emperor had ever done. He retired, voluntarily, alive. He moved to a palace on the coast and grew vegetables. When Rome begged him to come back and take the throne again, he refused. "Rome needs you! Take back the throne! Have you seen my cabbages? Your cabbages? I grew these with my own hands. The throne can wait forever." Legendary. Unfortunately, the moment he left, his successors started fighting over the whole thing again. Out of that mess rose Constantine, who, before the decisive battle in 312 AD, reportedly saw a flaming cross in the sky. He took it as a sign from the God of the Christians, painted crosses on his soldiers' shields, and won. And so the empire that once fed Christians to lions now put the cross on its banners. One vision, one battle, 2,000 years of consequences. Constantine also built himself a shiny new capital in the east, Constantinople, which was the humble Roman way of saying, Constantine City. After Constantine, the empire was split one final time between 2 brothers. The east, rich and protected behind Constantinople's massive walls, would survive for another 1,000 years as the Byzantine Empire. The west got the short straw, an empty treasury, crumbling defenses, and a very long, very exposed border. And the tribes on the other side of that border noticed. The Goths invaded and actually sacked Rome itself in 410 AD, the first time in 800 years. Then in 455 AD came the Vandals, who looted the city so thoroughly that their name became a word. Yes, that word. Every time you say vandalism, you're quoting Roman history. By 476 AD, the Western Empire was an empire in name only. A Germanic general named Odoacer walked in, removed the last emperor, and didn't even bother killing him, because the boy was so powerless it wasn't worth the effort. He just sent him to retire at a villa. And here's the detail that feels like history planned it. The first king of Rome was named Romulus. The last emperor of Rome was named Romulus. The story ended on the exact same name it started with. After 1,200 years, Rome had come full circle. So that's it? Rome is gone? Gone? Look around you. Your calendar is Julius Caesar's calendar. July is named after him, August after Augustus. Your language is stuffed with Latin.
Senate, Republic, Citizen, Empire, all Roman words. Your government, with its Senate and its veto and its constitution, Rome's blueprint. Roman concrete is still standing after 2,000 years, while your driveway cracked in 5. Rome didn't just conquer land, it conquered time. And every warning sign that brought Rome down, the corruption, the division, the gap between the rich and everyone else, well, let's just say history doesn't repeat itself, but it definitely rhymes. If you enjoyed this journey through the greatest empire in history, subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and comment below which empire we should cover next. The Mongols? The Ottomans? The empire of some guy named Napoleon? You decide. Thanks for watching, and remember, don't cross the Rubicon unless you really mean it. See you next time.